This is the van, the E350 passenger van extended. This is it gutted. We're gonna go inside and I'm gonna show you some of the things that I had to figure out to be able to frame it in so that I could eventually start building. To me, I'm gonna assume that's one of the hardest parts, is dealing with a cavity that's not square, it's not consistent. Come on in and we will show you what we started with. There's only one wire that connects all these. I just went from having a really nice van to a big piece of shit. Here we are inside, and the hardest part is, like, if you're going to do this, for example, the hardest part is figuring out your layout, what you're going to want to build, and what it's going to, how it's going to serve your purposes. So that's going to be unique to the individual. But one thing that will be pretty consistent is you got to find a way to frame this in so you have things to attach to. But there's so many holes and rivets and stuff for the structure of the van. You know, a lot of these pop outs and a lot of these little angles that you have to find a way to frame to. So far as my decision to be able to utilize the space, what I decided to do is just, so far, is kind of just tacked up. This is all half-assed right now because we've got everything in place so we can start building. And until we make final decisions, I didn't want to screw everything off perfectly. But these runners here, and then we're going to trim around everything at the bottom to give us some footing. That was kind of tricky to figure out. I didn't see any videos that explained it or talked about it. But after putting some boards up and kind of mocking things up and thinking about it for really probably quite some time, this seemed to me to be the best bet. Number one, because eventually I want to be able to keep the windows, so I framed it in a way that I could do that. And then I can just panel this once I'm done after I build all the backing. This side, same thing. This is probably quite a bit easier. You can see we've gotten a little further on this side just with the framing because it's a smaller wall, but it's the same thing. Behind this is just tacked up right now. So back here, you can kind of see what we did even on this side is that we got rid of all the holes. We wanted to get rid of all the, you know, any place that insulation could blow through, or that, you know, anything that could cause seal or damage from the weather, whether it's temperature or moisture. We kind of sealed it all off. I think we have gotten everything. You can see one hole right there. Try to cover these holes with some of this foil. Some of it's insulated. Some of the smaller holes I'm just using foil because I did stuff. You can even see some of the spray foam in there that we filled all these up, all these cavities. And then this is filled up with either insulation or spray foam, whichever one was easiest. But I think this is going to be best suited for me, especially. I'm not trying to go all out and crazy with this van. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm more into backpacking and camping and traveling light, so I'm not trying to make this thing some, you know, livable RV. The most I'll be using it for is 3 to 5 days at a time, maybe here and there for, you know, longer periods, but for the most part I just need the basics in here. So this is completely unfinished, but one thing that we did finish and didn't show you ahead of time is we ended up covering the ceiling. So first we did, if you work on these vans, you're going to see, you know, the top of it, it's, you're probably all familiar with, at least with the way that the ceilings work. It's just ribs and then the sheet metal. So the 1 inch is back there between the ribs. We glued that up with caulking, and then we sealed it with some weather stripping tape or some of the foil tape. After we did that and we got all the measurements, then we took this polyiso board, which is 1/2 inch, and we just, you know, finished off the ceiling. So it's all sealed. It's a moisture barrier. It's insulated. It's actually insulated really well. It's supposed to, the R rating on these is supposed to be quite a bit higher than, you know, like you know, something thinner, or even a lot of people use the bubble wrap, or I always forget what it's called, but that bubble wrap foil stuff, and it's really not that insulative. So this is going to be really good from protecting the rays at the roof. I'm actually really happy with it. I think it came out kind of better than I expected. This is the first time I've done this, so it's new to me, but it's fun so far. What's next? The floor. We're going to figure this floor out. This floor is going to be really, really simple. So each one of these bolts is a body mount. I think these back ones might be body mounts or steel bumpers, and they're all rusted, so I'm going to have to clean those up. So far as I can tell, we're going to put the Reflectix down on the ground. The only real reason we're doing that is because there will be a bit of a gap between the ridges and the valley here. So it's not much of a gap, but it's better than nothing. And that's kind of how that stuff is supposed to work. So when we go thin on the floor, we're gonna make a template. I've seen people online quite a bit on YouTube doing templates with cardboard. I think they use paper first, then they use cardboard, and then they trace that onto the underlayment, and which we're gonna be using you know, the Reflectix, and then they do the subfloor. So we're gonna put the floor in now. We're gonna figure out how to keep the seat brackets so that I can keep that passenger seat. I don't think I'm missing much else, but before we actually start covering some of this up, because this construction is gonna get, obviously it's not gonna be visible as soon as we put these panels up. This wiring right here, this is the whole wiring for the back of the van. So this harness is quite heavy duty. It comes from the driver's side front, and it was bolted up to this corner. So it ran along the trim inside of the interior and then up and around, and everything was in place. The problem is there was all these wires coming down from it to go to the AC, to go to the brake light, over here to go over to the other brake light. And so this big harness was just kind of a nuisance being up inside of our roof and being inside of our trim. So what I did, so I ripped it out, and then I'm gonna put it inside the wall here, because this from here down will be paneled. So I'm gonna put it in here, and I bought some clips to be able to nicely secure it. And then I'll run the wires back here, so there's one place where the wires will go through the wall, but the rest of it's nice and clear. Otherwise it would have been a little bit of an eyesore. And if I ever drill in here, if I ever want to, you know, screw things into this place, I do not have to worry about my AC unit, my tail lights, my brake lights, my speakers. All of it's going to be safe inside the wall. Really just kind of figuring shit out is, to me, seemingly the hardest part. Probably would have kept a couple trim pieces in case I wanted to use them to be able to mold some other things together, whether it's trim or paneling. There's a couple of pieces that probably would have been useful. We didn't decide to match today. And when I look at him, like, I think, okay, that's just Sheldon. It's not like I planned it, but when you look at us together, we're kind of dressed the same. He just, yeah, I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, so I'm gonna put Sheldon back to work. He's been standing around with the camera, but we need him to build a floor, so we're gonna get him working on that now.